Matt Schwartz with Lange Legal Group. How are you doing this evening?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me. I think this is great that you've been inviting a lot of different professionals to join you in your virtual meetings.
No, I'm so grateful for your time. One of the things we've always known but have been slow to capitalize on is that the strength of synagogues rests in its membership. And you have quite a connection to a number of members. You have a hand guiding this community, as does Beth, who's currently on our board. And I'm so grateful for your time this evening, after what I understand has been a busy day.
It has been, they all seem busy. One of the adjustments, like many people who are working from home, is when do you separate work from home? It just seems like I get up in the morning, I start working, and then go to bed.
Was talking to another lawyer this morning, and we agreed that one of the casualties, which I use facetiously, I realize there's a crisis going on right now, but one of the things that has slipped is the quote unquote days off, because now every moment is a day on.
Yeah, I've certainly experienced that, and it seems like you have three or four of these meetings a day in addition to having a young family, so you seem quite busy as well.
Ah, it's that time in life. So tell me about the estate planning profession, business. What are you doing on a normal day? Normal meaning pre-COVID-19 day.
Well, so a normal day would be that you would just go into the office and say hello to everybody and make your calls and actually see people face to face, which is not the case anymore. And so it would be a much more regular schedule that you'd come in, you'd talk to your clients, you'd help them work through problems, and then you'd get back to your regular life. So it's the COVID-19 has definitely changed things. For one, people are much less concerned about people are much more concerned about dying, which is a sad thing to say, but it's true, than they were before. It's not like in the past, you take your car to the dealer, you get it repaired, and you want your car right away. And it's not that way with estate planning. People feel good that they called the estate planner, but they might call you 2 months later after you've prepared the documents.
Yeah. So what else are you hearing from people during these uncertain times? A little bit more urgency around some of these issues. What else do you hear from clients?
Sure. I mean, we had some law changes that came in right in the middle of all this. So I specialize primarily with retirees, giving them advice about how to handle their IRAs. So I certainly do estate planning for clients of all ages, but our focus is for retired clients. And right at the end of last year, Congress needed to raise money, so they changed the law to not allow children to inherit IRAs over a lifetime anymore. They have to take out the money over 10 years because Congress needs their tax revenue. So we already had people thinking about, should I be converting to Roth IRAs at historical low rates? Should I give more to charity? Because these are bad dollars to have as part of my investment portfolio now. So that was a big change we saw with the planning. And then the coronavirus bill, that I forget what the acronym stands for, but I think it's great that Congress came up with CARES as the acronym. And I meant to have it with me, but anyways, one of the things they did in that is for seniors who are over 70 and a half, they don't have to take out their required minimum distribution. And actually, starting next year, that age is 72 for the required minimum distribution. But because people were concerned about the economy, they went ahead and waived that requirement for people to have to take that money out of their IRAs when the market was low.
I imagine that the pace of changes coming out of the IRS, coming out of Congress, has increased recently. How do you get the latest and greatest information? Are you following the IRS on Twitter? Are there daily briefings that go out that you're plugged into?
So there's certain people whose business is not so much servicing clients like mine, but it's keeping advisors informed. So if you're linked into people like Bob Keebler and Natalie Choate, who are some of the experts in estate planning, Jim Lang, my boss and the owner of our business, also keeps up with the latest changes. So part of that is we're aware pretty quickly when there's a law change, and then we have to figure out a way to communicate it to our clients. Though, honestly, like many people, one of the changes has been you can't just get on the phone with somebody and just talk about the technical advice or the great idea you have. You got to check in with them, see how they're doing, see what's going on in their lives. And that's more important right now than it might be the advice you're going to give is going to save them a lot of money or provide a lot of value, but you got to have that human connection. And one of the things we've done that people are really concerned about right now is, well, it's great, Matt, I'm talking to you about my estate plan, but how do I get my documents signed? And right now, we're not supposed to be within 6 feet of each other with social distancing. Can we do it over FaceTime? No, Pennsylvania doesn't accept that. So I just read today there's some electronic notaries now in the state, but I am finding that it's providing a tremendous amount of value, both right now and in the long term, to actually go out with a couple employees of mine. And as an attorney, I'm allowed to act as a notary. We'll do a signing on their front porch or back porch or in their garage, and we'll stay socially distanced. And we were wearing masks today, and I had two of these signings today, and it just brings these clients such peace of mind to know that their documents are signed. Now, to reassure people, you can still sign a will without having witnesses and a notary. It's just a little bit more complicated to get it into the court record, which, by the way, the courts are still open to probate wills.
Interesting. So porch signings are a big part of how what you're doing has changed. And I
Correct.
imagine the number of people who want to meet with you face to face has changed as well. What other changes are you seeing in the industry in response to the current times?
Well, I think a large part of it is what I alluded to before, that you can't just be giving that technical advice. You can't just be focused on a sale. You got to do what people should always be doing, which is relating to people. And you got to give them peace of mind. So you got to think about, why are they in pain? Why are they coming to talk to you? And how can you help them? So I think that probably isn't all that different, but now with this heightened sense of urgency, I had a client the other day who just went ahead and signed off a one-page email that was sort of their unofficial will till I can get to it. I mean, we're very blessed right now, but absent someone who's passing away, I'm on about a 1 month to 6 week delay in getting projects out to people. And that's with having two other people working full time, with one of them having a 5 month old baby and the daycares are closed. So when is he doing his work? Because he's watching the child because his wife's in public health. So he's working from 5 in the morning till 7 in the morning, and he's working during her naps, and he's working at night, and he's trying to work a little bit on the weekends. But this pandemic really has impacted a lot of our employees. And it's also, when you have a little bit more of a senior staff and people are used to doing things by paper, and we have a lot of forms to complete, etc., forcing them to innovate and have to complete the forms online is not a bad thing. So I think we'll have some good long-term efficiencies that come out of this, but the transition to getting used to working remotely has been quite a struggle for many of my staff. Whereas for me, they can't stop by my office as often, so I could actually get more done during the day.
Fair enough. I imagine there is a tremendous amount of uncertainty, if we're being polite, or feelings of panic if you're more in a precarious financial situation and you get that statement in the mail and you want to look at it, but you don't want to look at it, but you want to see how bad it is, but how often should people be monitoring their accounts right now? how often should they be making potential changes as opposed to those mandatory or regulatory changes that you bring to them?
Well, I generally recommend to people to maybe review their statements quarterly and don't look at them more frequently than that. There's a lot of angst right now, and if you've either hired somebody or you're keeping track of what's going on, for most people, that's a reasonable recheck. I know there was a little bit of a setback today in the market, but overall, it's still up about 20% from the down point. And this is the period where actually Beth and I took advantage of the opportunity when the market was low and we did a Roth IRA conversion. And hopefully we're right. I mean, we had no idea where it was going, but it just felt like the time was right. So we did that. And people should also consider um, they should also consider tax loss harvesting, that if they have a loss in a position right now, that they can invest in something very similar without getting too technical with the wash rules. You can't invest in the same exact investment that you just sold for 30 days, but there's normally something that's pretty similar. So if you want to generate a loss in your portfolio that you can later set off by a gain, this is a good time to harvest losses. So it's sort of, people can do it on their own, but you're generally better off, just like you probably shouldn't do your will on Zoom, or not Zoom, I'm trying to remember what that legal program's called that everyone does their documents on,
It
but
may be Zoom.
maybe it is. Um, Legal Zoom maybe is what it's called. But anyways, you probably shouldn't do this without talking with an advisor, but these are things that you can be thinking about. And I do not encourage people to look at their investments every day. It just causes too much angst because we're seeing record volatility right now. And I think we're going to continue to see that till there's a little bit more certainty in the world.
Makes sense. So that's what we shouldn't be doing right now. What should people be doing? What are those things during this uncertain time, during normal times, that you would recommend to people as they're considering, either they're in retirement, they're considering retirement, they're making sure all of their affairs in order, they're thinking about their legacy and people who come after them? What should people be doing?
Well, I think regardless of your age, the very first thing you should consider is, what happens if I can't make my own decisions? Who's making them for me? So many times people just assume that's automatically the spouse. And although the Pennsylvania healthcare law works that way, if you have a financial asset that's not in joint name, but is an individual name, and you haven't named your spouse to make a decision for you, if you're suddenly incapacitated and you need to get money out of that account, or you need to change the investments in that account, all of a sudden you can't do it. So first and foremost, you should make sure that you have a financial power of attorney and a healthcare power of attorney. And then as far as a will, um, for many married couples, if they don't have children and their assets are to each other as beneficiaries, or they're joint, maybe a will isn't so crucial. But once you have children, not too many people want their children to receive all the life insurance at age 18 with no restrictions. So a big part of estate planning that a lot of people miss is that assets are controlled by beneficiary designations often, and not by your will. So it's very important that your beneficiary designations tie into your will. So if you set up a trust for minor children under your will, and your beneficiary designation says spouse first, child second, then that nice trust you set up for your child under your will is not tying into that beneficiary designation, which means that that child would receive all the money at 18 under Pennsylvania law.
Interesting. Wow, I can't resist a shameless plug while I've got you. You mentioned charitable giving as a strategy some people might hold right now.
Yes.
When might that be financially advantageous, not only to the organization, but to the individual?
Well, so one of the things that came out of the CARES Act is now, even if you don't itemize your charitable deductions, you can go ahead and give $300 this year to charity. So that seems sort of small, but otherwise the money was being thrown away for those who didn't itemize. And with the tax law change at the end of 2017 that went into effect in 2018, many people who itemized in the past no longer itemize because the standard deduction is so large for a lot of people. For people who are over 70 and a half, they could pay their dues or make other charitable contributions through their required minimum distribution that you can just go ahead and direct it to the charity of your choice. And we always recommend for people who don't itemize deductions who are over 70 and a half to consider using part of their IRA to pay their charitable obligations.
Makes a lot of sense. What haven't I asked you? What else do you want people to know at this time?
Um, I mean, I would say overall, the key thing is to know that estate planners are working to help you. So don't feel that just because of the pandemic that you can't get advice and help. We're in a unique situation that we have a combined accounting office. So the accounting office is considered an essential business, but we're still working remotely because technically we're not an essential business. Those similarly situated businesses have gotten exemptions to prepare estate planning documents. So we're working behind the scenes remotely to be able to do that. But I think one thing people are concerned about is how do I get my documents signed? And that's something that we've been able to work out a solution for. So this is and the thing that has really, I guess when you think about it, it's not surprising, but it's even put more pressure on the situation. So we have a lot of demand to get documents to people. And then on the back end, because people don't have their normal activities, they're reading them right away. So you finish your documents and for a client, and 3 days later they say, okay, I just have these couple questions. Can you answer them for me? And when can I sign? Whereas before you'd have several weeks before they would get back to you. So we're just having a little bit of a supply problem right now and trying to get everything done. But I guess just for the general public, something like a pandemic makes you think about these things. And the good thing about putting together an estate plan is you don't have to revise it every year. Once you have it in place, it should last you a while. So this is an opportunity to think about that. And I think Rabbi Lockett's and others in the past have talked about the importance of ethical wills, which I know is more in your area. But it's still an opportunity to express your wishes to your loved ones as to what you want your personal legacy to be above dollars and cents. I mean, we can certainly get things organized as far as how the assets should pass and try to put nice words in when someone's had family difficulties to make it a little more pleasant if they're not going to be so kind to that family member in an inheritance situation. But the opportunity overall for you to express your values to your family, that could be a great activity right now to set up some type of video as to what your legacy is during these times where you can't do as much.
That's right. They're often hard conversations to have, but there's no time like the present. You don't have to be with them face to face. You can use this technology. You can use the telephone. I understand that they're good for making phone calls and not just sending emails as well, to have those really important conversations in life.
Right. And you never realize till you were working in a setting like this how important it is to have multiple sets of headsets. The one that goes in the computer for sound, and then the one that's your Bluetooth headset. And it's definitely a different environment than what it was before.
That's right. May we return to it soon, or perhaps even better, may we find a hybrid option that allows us to take the best of the ingenuity that we're seeing now with the way we used to operate and move forward into a new reality to better serve all that we're trying to reach.
Agreed.
Matt Schwartz, Lange Legal Group, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you for having me.